October 1941. A typewriter company, a jukebox maker, and a convicted murderer are about to arm 6 million American soldiers with a weapon designed in 13 days. The M1 Carbine shouldn't exist. It was cobbled together from a Winchester hunting rifle prototype, a modified Garand operating rod, and a gas piston system designed by a man who learned gunsmithing in prison after taking another man's life. The Army gave Winchester weeks to produce something impossible, a rifle that weighed half as much as the M1 Garand, fired faster than a bolt action, and cost less than a pistol. They delivered a prototype built from spare parts that nearly failed inspection hours before the deadline. That crude, hand-built monstrosity became America's secret weapon, and by 1945, it had outproduced every firearm in United States military history. June 1940. France falls in 6 weeks. Wehrmacht panzers roll through the Ardennes, crushing Allied lines with terrifying speed. American military observers watch the newsreels and realize something horrifying. Modern warfare has changed. Blitzkrieg doesn't distinguish between frontline troops and support personnel. Tank columns advance so fast that radio operators, truck drivers, mortar crews, and supply sergeants find themselves under fire before infantry can respond. These men carry M1911 pistols, 7 rounds, effective to maybe 50 feet. When German armored reconnaissance units appear 200 yards away, those pistols are paperweights. The Thompson submachine gun is an option, but it weighs 10 pounds and costs $225 per unit. The M1 Garand rifle is magnificent, but at 9.5 pounds it's exhausting to carry if you're already hauling a radio, mortar tube, or medical supplies. A young American supply sergeant somewhere in North Africa, call him a wireman with the Signal Corps, carries 50 pounds of radio equipment. The M1 Garand slung on his back adds another 10. He's been marching for 8 hours. His shoulders ache. The rifle catches on his pack straps, knocks his helmet over his eyes when he bends down. When his unit takes contact, he's too slow drawing the weapon. The Garand is a magnificent rifle for infantrymen. For everyone else, it's a burden. The U.S. Army Chief of Infantry sees the reports. In 1938, he requests the Ordnance Department develop a light rifle, something portable, powerful, and practical for troops who aren't riflemen. The specifications are demanding. The weapon cannot exceed 5 pounds. It must be effective to 300 yards. It should fire semi-automatically, and it must chamber a new .30 caliber cartridge that Winchester is developing specifically for this role. The formal requirement isn't approved until 1940. The clock is ticking. America will enter the war soon. They need a weapon yesterday. Enter Winchester Repeating Arms Company, a legendary firearms manufacturer drowning in contracts. They're already producing M1 Garands for the Army and commercial hunting rifles. When the Ordnance Department issues the carbine requirement, Winchester initially doesn't even submit a design. They're overbooked, understaffed, and running at capacity. But Edwin Pugsley, Winchester's supervisor, sees an opportunity. His team has been developing a hunting rifle design around a .30-06 cartridge. What if they could scale it down? Shrink the action, adapt it to the lighter .30 caliber carbine round, simplify the gas system. It's insane. It's impossible. They have weeks, not months. Pugsley gathers a team: William C. Romer, Fred Humston, 3 other engineers whose names history has forgotten but whose work will arm millions. They work around the clock. Coffee and cigarettes and desperation. The deadline is imminent. The first prototypes, submitted by competing manufacturers, Colt, Garand, independent designers, fail Army testing in May 1941. The Ordnance Department schedules a second round of trials for September. Winchester has 4 months to create something from nothing. And then there's David Marshall Williams, a convicted murderer. A man who took another man's life during a shootout with revenue agents in North Carolina in 1921. Williams spent time in prison, but the warden saw something in him, an obsessive mechanical genius. Williams was allowed to establish a workshop inside the prison. He designed firearms, he filed patents, and he developed a revolutionary short-stroke gas piston system that would change weapons design forever. After his parole, Williams went to work for Winchester. His gas piston design becomes the heart of the carbine. But Williams is temperamental, working on his own prototypes, separate from Pugsley's team. His design won't be ready until December 1941, 2 months after the Army needs submissions. Pugsley's team cobbles together the first prototype in 13 days. 13 days. They cannibalize parts from a Winchester M1905 rifle for the trigger housing. They modify a Garand operating rod. They hand-fit components that should be precision-machined. The prototype is a mechanical Frankenstein held together by hope and ingenuity. Hours before the submission deadline, they discover a problem. The gas port is too small. The weapon cycles sluggishly, prone to jamming. An engineer grabs a drill and widens the gas port by hand. They test-fire the modified prototype. It works. Barely. They pack it in a crate and ship it to Aberdeen Proving Ground. September 1941. Aberdeen Proving Ground, Maryland. Army evaluators line up the competing carbine prototypes. Winchester's entry looks unfinished, because it is. The other designs are polished, professional. Winchester's carbine is held together with borrowed parts and last-minute modifications. The tests begin. Accuracy trials, endurance firing, drop tests, mud tests. The Winchester carbine performs flawlessly, not just acceptably, flawlessly. It's lighter than required at 5.5 pounds. It cycles reliably. The short-stroke gas piston keeps the mechanism clean. Gas pressure taps the operating rod just enough to unlock the bolt, then vents away. There's no long-stroke piston fouling the action. The rifle stays cleaner longer. The rate of fire is manageable. Soldiers can control follow-up shots. The recoil is mild. October 22, 1941. The United States Army officially adopts the Winchester design as the U.S. Carbine, caliber .30, M1. 2 months later, Japan attacks Pearl Harbor. America is at war. And the carbine that almost didn't exist suddenly becomes essential. Production begins immediately, but there's a problem. Winchester alone cannot meet demand. The Army needs carbines by the millions. They approach other manufacturers, but not gun companies. General Motors Inland Division, a factory that makes automotive parts. IBM, known for business machines and punch card systems. Underwood, a typewriter manufacturer. Rock-Ola, the jukebox company. Saginaw Steering Gear. Standard products, quality hardware. Companies that have never built firearms are handed specifications and told to start producing carbines. The genius of the M1 Carbine is its simplicity. The weapon was designed for mass production. Parts are interchangeable across manufacturers. You could take components from an IBM carbine, a Winchester carbine, and a Rock-Ola carbine, mix them in a box, and assemble 3 functioning rifles. The tolerances are generous, the design is forgiving, and the cost drops precipitously. At the beginning of World War II, each M1 carbine costs $45 to produce, half the cost of an M1 Garand, 1/5 the cost of a Thompson. By the war's end, peak production efficiency brings the cost down to $32.22 per unit, mid-1942. A young American paratrooper, a private with the 101st Airborne, stands on the tarmac in England, awaiting his first combat jump. He's been issued an M1 Carbine. He's not impressed. The rifle feels light. Too light. It doesn't have the heft, the authority of the M1 Garand that infantry riflemen carry. His sergeant told him the carbine is for support troops, radio operators, officers. Not real soldiers. The private wonders if he's been given a toy. June 6th, 1944. Normandy. The transport aircraft shudders through flak. The jump light turns green. The private tumbles into the darkness over France, the carbine strapped to his leg. He hits the ground hard, rolls, sheds his chute. Around him, the night erupts with gunfire. He can't find his unit. He's alone. And then he sees movement. German soldiers, maybe 50 yards away. The private unslings the carbine. It's shorter than the Garand, easier to maneuver. He flips the safety, sights, fires. The carbine cracks, cycles, fires again. 15 rounds without reloading. The Germans scatter. The private survives. And in that moment, his opinion of the M1 Carbine changes forever. Across every theater of war, this scene repeats. Tank crews love the carbine. It fits inside a Sherman's cramped interior. And if you have to bail out of a burning tank, you want something you can swing fast. Artillery forward observers carry carbines while calling fire missions. Combat engineers clear obstacles with carbines slung across their backs. Mortar teams engage enemy infiltrators with carbines while their heavy weapons are immobile. The rifle isn't designed for sustained firefights at 300 yards. It's designed for the moment when support troops suddenly become combat troops, and in that role, it excels. But there are complaints. Some soldiers report inadequate stopping power, particularly in the Pacific, where Japanese troops wear heavy quilted uniforms, or in Europe during winter when thick coats absorb bullets. At ranges beyond 150 yards, the .30 caliber carbine round loses effectiveness. The bullet drops significantly, and its lighter weight means less penetration. Frontline infantrymen who traded their Garands for carbines sometimes regret the decision after their first firefight. The carbine is perfect for its intended role, but it's not a battle rifle. The scale of M1 Carbine production defies comprehension. Between 1941 and 1945, American factories produce over 6,100,000 M1 carbines. That's more than the M1 Garand, more than the Thompson, more than any other American small arm in history. Inland Division of General Motors alone manufactures 2,600,000 units. Winchester produces 830,000. IBM, yes, IBM, the computer company, builds carbines. Rock-Ola jukeboxes stop rolling off assembly lines, replaced by rifles. The manufacturing process is brutal. 3 shifts, 24 hours a day. Women replace men drafted into military service. Rosie the Riveter becomes Rosie the Gunsmith. Quality control inspectors work overtime, checking headspace, testing gas systems, function firing every weapon. Rejected parts are scrapped and melted down. At peak production, factories are delivering thousands of carbines per day. The logistics are staggering. Millions of wooden stocks, millions of barrels, magazines, bolts, operating rods. Subcontractors number in the hundreds, producing pins, springs, sights, sling swivels. The carbine becomes the ultimate testament to American industrial might, and the soldiers keep coming back for more. Despite mixed reviews, demand never stops. By 1944, most government contracts are terminated because the Army has enough. Winchester is one of only 2 manufacturers still producing carbines when Japan surrenders in September 1945. The contract is canceled immediately. Workers are laid off. The production lines go cold. Over 6 million M1 carbines now exist, enough to arm every support soldier in the American military for decades. The carbine's battlefield performance is complicated. Ask 10 veterans, get 10 different opinions. A Marine radio man on Tarawa praises the lightweight rifle that doesn't slow him down while humping communications gear. An infantryman in the Philippines curses the carbine after watching bullets fail to drop a charging enemy soldier at close range. A tank commander in France swears by it: compact, fast handling, perfect for close-quarters fighting. An Army Ranger in Italy abandons his carbine after one engagement and requisitions an M1 Garand. Audie Murphy, the most decorated American soldier of World War II, carries an M1 carbine during many of his actions in France. Murphy, a Tennessee mountain man who learned to shoot hunting for food, uses the carbine with devastating effectiveness. He eliminates German machine gunners, takes out snipers, and during the action that earns him the Medal of Honor, Murphy uses his carbine to hold off German infantry while directing artillery fire. When his ammunition runs dry, he switches to a burning tank destroyer's .50 caliber machine gun and continues fighting. Murphy's success with the carbine proves something important. In the hands of a skilled marksman, the weapon is lethal, but Murphy is exceptional. Most soldiers are average shots under stress. For them, the carbine's limitations become apparent. Official Army evaluations in 1951 report that 95% of effective carbine fire occurs at ranges under 50 yards. Beyond that distance, hit probability drops dramatically. Soldiers complain about insufficient stopping power. The lightweight bullet, 110 grains compared to the Garand's 174-grain projectile, lacks energy transfer. Multiple hits are sometimes required to neutralize an enemy combatant. The winter of 1944 amplifies these problems. During the Battle of the Bulge, American troops fight in sub-zero temperatures wearing heavy coats. German soldiers wear even thicker winter uniforms. Carbine rounds sometimes fail to penetrate enough layers of clothing to reach vital organs. Soldiers who carried carbines request Garands. Others keep their carbines but carry more magazines, compensating for stopping power with volume of fire. December 1944. The Ordnance Department approves the M2 carbine, a select fire variant capable of fully automatic fire at 750 rounds per minute. Conversion kits are issued to allow field armorers to upgrade existing M1 carbines to M2 specification. The M2 addresses the stopping power complaints by allowing soldiers to deliver multiple rapid hits. But the war ends before large numbers of M2 carbines reach frontline units. Only a few see combat in Europe during the final Allied advance into Germany. And here's the twist. The Germans love the M1 carbine. Captured American carbines are highly prized by Wehrmacht and SS troops. The German military designates them Selbstlade-Karabiner 455A. Self-loading carbine 455, American origin. Photographs from the Battle of the Bulge show German paratroopers and SS soldiers carrying M1 carbines alongside their standard-issue weapons. One image captures German troops near Poteau, Belgium, in December 1944, armed with captured carbines. Even the Volkssturm, Hitler's last-ditch citizen militia of old men and boys defending Berlin in 1945, uses captured M1 carbines because they're more effective than the obsolete rifles and shotguns the Volkssturm is normally issued. Why do German soldiers prefer American carbines? Because they face the same problem American support troops faced: mobility. German forces in retreat don't have time to train on heavy weapons. A captured M1 carbine is lightweight, easy to use, fires semi-automatically, and doesn't require specialized training. German soldiers simply load a magazine and pull the trigger. The carbine's simplicity, its greatest strength, makes it universally adoptable. The M1 Carbine achieves something remarkable. It changes American military doctrine. Before the carbine, support troops carried pistols or remained unarmed. They were considered non-combatants who would retreat if engaged. The carbine transforms support troops into armed defenders. Radio operators can return fire. Truck drivers can fight back during ambushes. Medics can protect wounded soldiers. The carbine blurs the line between combat and support roles. This doctrinal shift has profound implications. American logistics units become harder to raid. Enemy forces that previously targeted vulnerable supply convoys now face armed resistance. The carbine's widespread distribution means American units maintain local security without diverting riflemen from frontline duty. Every soldier is armed, every soldier is dangerous. The psychological impact is equally significant. Support troops gain confidence knowing they're not helpless. Morale improves. Soldiers feel valued. The Army trusts them with a firearm, not just a sidearm. This matters more than ballistics. A soldier who believes he can defend himself fights harder. And there's an economic dimension. At $32 per unit by war's end, the M1 Carbine is absurdly cost-effective. The Army equips millions of soldiers for less money than equipping thousands with Thompsons. The savings fund tanks, aircraft, artillery. The carbine becomes part of America's industrial victory, winning through mass production and efficiency. The war ends. Military planners expect the M1 Carbine to fade into obsolescence. They're wrong. The Korean War erupts in 1950, and the carbine returns to combat. This time it's the M2 Select Fire variant that dominates. American and South Korean forces use carbines extensively, but Korea reveals the weapon's limitations under new conditions. North Korean and Chinese soldiers wear heavy padded winter uniforms. They attack in human wave assaults. American troops fire their M2 carbines on full automatic, burning through magazines in seconds. They run dry just as enemy forces close the distance. Official reports note that inexperienced soldiers waste ammunition by firing automatically instead of making aimed semi-automatic shots. Seasoned troops learn to use the selector switch judiciously, automatic fire for emergencies, semi-automatic for accuracy. The carbine serves in Vietnam from 1965 through 1975. Special Forces advisors carry carbines while training Montagnard tribesmen. Helicopter door gunners keep carbines within reach. South Vietnamese forces use thousands of American carbines, and even as the M16 rifle enters service, carbines remain in inventory because they're reliable and plentiful. The M1 Carbine officially retires from U.S. military service in the mid-1960s, but examples remain in arsenals for decades. Some National Guard units keep carbines into the 1980s. Foreign militaries and police forces worldwide continue using American surplus carbines through the 21st century. Taliban fighters in Afghanistan have been photographed carrying M1 carbines as recently as the 2010s, 70 years after the weapon's introduction. Collectors prize wartime carbines. An original Winchester or Inland carbine in good condition sells for $1,500 to $2,000. Rare manufacturers like Rock-Ola or IBM command premium prices. Modern reproductions by Auto Ordnance retail for $1,200. The design is public domain. Anyone can manufacture a carbine, and people do. The M1 Carbine represents everything right and wrong about wartime weapons development. It's underpowered by rifle standards. It lacks stopping power. Its effective range is limited. Frontline infantry often hated it. But it was never designed for frontline infantry. It was designed for the support soldier carrying a radio. The tank commander escaping a burning vehicle, the artilleryman defending his gun position, the combat engineer clearing obstacles under fire. For them, the carbine was perfect. The numbers tell the story. Over 6 million produced, more than any other American small arm, served in 4 major wars, used by dozens of countries, still in service somewhere in the world today, 83 years after its adoption. Not bad for a weapon designed by a convicted murderer, built in 13 days, and manufactured by jukebox makers. An American test pilot who flew bombing missions over Germany, a captain who carried an M1 Carbine as his personal weapon, once said, "I never loved that rifle. It wasn't powerful enough for my taste, but every time I strapped it on, I knew it would work." That's all a soldier really needs, something that works when everything goes wrong. The M1 Carbine worked. For millions of American soldiers across 3 decades of war, it worked. And that $45 rifle, designed in less than 2 weeks, outproduced, outlasted, and outserved firearms that cost 5 times as much and took years to develop. Sometimes the best weapon isn't the most powerful. Sometimes it's just the one that keeps working. If this deep dive into American wartime innovation and the unsung weapon that armed millions inspired you, hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel. We bring you the untold stories of courage, engineering, and the moments that shaped history. The next chapter of the Second World War is coming. You don't want to miss it.